Hello everyone. In this video, we will be seeing what are regular expression validators in ASP.NET. More specifically, we will be seeing what are regular expression validator controls in ASP.NET. After understanding what are these controls, we will also see how we can implement regular expression validator controls in our ASP.NET projects. So, let's get started now. Now, what is a regular expression validator control? This is a very powerful control in ASP.NET. It checks if the value of an associated input control matches the pattern specified by a regular expression. Now, let us understand this with the help of an example. So, here I have shown you an image where we are entering an email address and clicking on submit button. But on clicking the submit button, we can see that invalid email is written over here. So what is happening over here? Over here, it is basically checking if this entered email ID is of the valid format or not. And if the format of this email ID is not same, then it will display an error message, which in this case is invalid email. Now, why are we getting the invalid email output over here? We are getting this kind of output because the entered value is not a valid email ID, or it does not have the valid format of an email ID. So let us see the basic format of an email ID. An email ID has some alphanumeric characters. Then after this, it has an @ symbol. After this @ symbol, it has some other alphabetic characters, and after this, it has a dot. And finally, at the end, we have a domain extension. For example, .org or .com or .co or something like this. So the general format of email ID is somewhat similar to this. So whenever we check for an email ID, we need to check if there is an @ symbol, if there is a dot, and if there is a proper domain name. So once the email ID fulfills all these conditions, we can say that the email ID is of the valid format. Okay, let us see some important attributes of this regular expression validator control. So the regular expression validator has an ID. Every regular expression validator has a unique ID. Now in this case, the ID is set as regular expression validator email. Then we have the attribute called as run at equals to server. After this, we have the error message attribute. This attribute displays the error message whenever the validation is unsuccessful. The error message over here is invalid email. You can change it to whatever you want to display. So since we are validating an email, I have set the text as invalid email. Then we have the control to validate attribute. This control to validate attribute is the attribute which validates the control. Okay, this control to validate attribute takes in the value of ID. Now which ID will it take? The ID which we have to pass over here is the same ID of the control which we want to validate. Now in this case, the ID of this email input is given as txt email. So the ID of this input box is txt email. That's why the control to validate value is written as txt email. After this control to validate attribute, we have another attribute called as forecolor. Now this is an optional attribute. This attribute takes in the value of a color. Now in this case, the color is set to red. Whenever the output text will be displayed, it will be displayed in the red color. After this forecolor, we have validation expression. This is one of the most important attribute in this regular expression validator. What this validation expression will take? The validation expression attribute takes a regular expression as an input. So whatever you can see on the screen over here is a regular expression. You don't have to worry about writing such big validation expressions because ASP.NET provides us with a pre-built set of validation expressions. That was all you need to know about regular expression validator controls. Now that we have got a basic overview of this regular expression validator control, let us see how we can implement this in our ASP.NET project. Open up your Visual Studio, then create a new project. We will create a project based on the .NET framework. So choose the Windows platform and the web option. And among the programming languages, choose the C#. Scroll down and search for the .NET framework template. Click on Next. Let us give our project some name. I have named it as Regular Expression Application. You can give it any sort of name which you want to give. Okay. Now you can take this option which says place the solution and project in same folder, but I'm gonna leave it unchecked. Note that the version of .NET Framework during the time I'm recording this video is 4.7.2. Now click on Create. On this page, choose the Web Forms option and again click on Create and let Visual Studio do the work of creating the project. It will take some time to create this project depending upon your system's specification. Once your project is created, you need to right click on your project name which is shown in the Solution Explorer, then select Add, then select New Item. In this window, choose the Web option and then select the Web Forms option. You also need to make sure that the language is mentioned as C# and not VB#. Now click on Add. After you click on Add, you must be able to see the new form in your project folder. And when you click on the drop down next to the web form, you will be able to see two files, a code behind file and a designer file. You need to open this webform1.aspx file. In this web form, we will create a form using tables. So let us start by typing table. Then in this, add a table row by typing tr. And then add a td. Actually, we will need two tds. So one is for placing the label and the other to place the input control. So let us just clone this td. Now let us bold the label by typing b tag and we'll write email within this b tags. Now open up your toolbox on the left hand side of the screen and drag the text box control from there and drop it between second td tags. Now let us change the id to txt email. Now I'll just go to the designer view to see if it looks the way we want. It looks fine for me. I just need to add some blank lines before the form. So I'll just do that. Okay, now we need to add a button which will allow us to submit the form. Therefore, add another table row and in this add a TD. Now drag a button control from the toolbar and drop it between these TD tags. Change the ID to btn submit and set the text as submit. If we add call span equals to 2, then this will occupy the space of two columns in the table. So let us add this value also. Now, one last thing is left, which is adding the regular expression validator control. So let us do that now. Add some space after the text box. Then search for regular expression validator control in the toolbar and place it below the text box. You will find this validation control in the validation section. Now let us change the ID to regular expression validator email and set the error message as invalid email. Okay. Then we need to add an attribute which is the control to validate attribute. As I had told you all that we need to pass in control which we want to validate. In our case, it is the txt email. We need to pass in the ID of the control which we want to validate. Now we can also see that the error message which we are showing is of the black color. We can change the color to red by setting the 4color property equals to red. So you just need to write 4color with F and C capital and make it equal to red. Now go to the designer view and select this validator control and search for Validator Expression in the Properties tab. In this property, we will define the regular expression to validate the email. Click on the three dots next to this property. In this window, you can see a lot of different options for choosing the regular expression. You are free to experiment with those. But for now, we will stick to the internet email address. So when you select this option, you will notice that a very big expression loads up in the text box below. Now this expression is created by ASP.NET for us. Click on OK. You can see that this expression is automatically added in our file too. Now we will execute this and see if the validation actually works or not. So go back to your designer view and right click and select view in browser. Or you can use this shortcut Ctrl plus Shift plus W. If you're doing this for the first time, then you will need to install certificates and trust the certificates. So simply click on yes and again click on yes. And when the browser will open, you need to click on accept the risk and continue. Now we are in the application. Let us try entering an invalid email format and click on submit. You can see that we are not able to submit the form if we don't enter a valid email format. Okay, now let us enter some valid email format, that is text and then at the rate, then some alphabetic characters followed by a dot, which is again followed by some alphabetic characters. This time when we submitted the form, we did not see any error, and the previous error message also got disappeared. Even if I enter some other email ID like rishabh@gmail.com, then also the form is accepting the email because the format is correct. But if I try to enter something like rishabh@gmail dot, then it is showing the error message. Now you also need to note that when you try to submit an empty form, the form doesn't show any error message and accepts the input. You can prevent this by adding a required field validator control. Now let us try validating mobile numbers too. So add another TR below the first TR and add two TDs, one for label and another one for input control. In the first TD, write number within bolded tags, and in the second TD, add a text box and set its ID to txt number. Now you guys need to comment what is the next step which we need to perform. The options are A. Add a regular expression validator control. B. Set forecolor. C. Add a validator expression. You can go back and see what we had added while we were doing validation for email. So your time starts now. And the answer to that is we need to add a regular expression validator control. Thus, let us do that now. So select the regular expression validator control and drop it below txt number text box. Set the ID as regular expression validator number. Change the error message to invalid number format. So the ID was regular expression validator number, and also the error message will be invalid number format. Now we will also set the forecolor to red so that the user knows that it is an error message. Also, you need to add the control to validate attribute and set its value to txt number. Now go to the designer view and search for the validation expression property. Click on the three dots and select US phone number. Again, note that ASP.NET created this regular expression for us. Now after clicking on OK, go to the source view. We will modify the validation expression to make things simpler. Actually, let us remove this expression. We will write a very simple regular expression on our own. Also, remove US from the label. Okay, now let us write our expression. Within double quotes, type caret and dollar symbol, and then write \d, add curly braces, and within the braces, write the number 10. And if you want that the user should enter only India's country code, that is +91, then simply write +91 before \d. Note that you need to write plus in square brackets. So let me explain this expression to you. The expression starts with a caret symbol, which is followed by +91. That means the number should start with +91. Then we have a \d followed by 10 within curly brackets. So the number this means that +91 should be followed by 10 digits. And finally, we have a dollar symbol, which means that the last digit must be a number. Now let us go back to a design view and select the view in browser option. Enter some email address and enter a mobile number. I have used a 10-digit number over here, and so it is not showing any error. Let us modify the number and see if it works the same. I have added 9 at the end. Now when I click on the submit button, it shows me the error message. Now if I remove two numbers and try to submit it, then also it shows the error. But when I submit 10 digits with +91, it accepts the input and does not show any error. ASP.NET is performing this validation on the client side. Therefore, if you have any error in the form, then it is not allowing you to submit the form. Well, we can stop this client side validation and force ASP.NET to submit our forms and perform validation on the server side. So let us see how we can do that. Go to the source view of your Visual Studio Code and then in the Regular Expression Validator control of email and number, set the enable client script to false. You will need to search for this property in the properties tab of each of these validator control, and then you have to set the value of this enable client script property to false. You can also set this programmatically by simply typing the same keyword, which is enable client script equals to false. Now go to the designer view and select view in browser. Now if you enter an invalid email and submit it, then you will notice that this form is being submitted and the page is also being reloaded. Although you will see the same error message, but this time the error message is shown after the server has performed the validation. Now, if I enable the client script for the regular expression validators of both of these input controls, that is the email and the number, then it will perform validation on client side. Thus, if I enter a mobile number or email of an incorrect format, then it won't allow me to submit the form. Also notice that it is not refreshing the page, and this clearly tells us that the validation is being performed on the client side. And when I enter both the details in correct format, then you will see that it has allowed me to submit the form. So this is how you can use regular expression validator controls in your ASP.NET projects. We have also seen how we can use the inbuilt regular expressions in ASP.NET, and we have also seen how we can create our custom regular expression and use it. So that's it for this video, guys. If you want me to make more such videos, then please subscribe to my channel. If this video helped you at all, then please like this video. If you want me to make a video on specific topic, then feel free to write it in the comment section. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.